Today we're going to talk about a proposed amendment to the
Yes,
Kansas
we
Constitution.
are. As a matter of fact, I can share it with you. Let me bring it up for a second. Yeah, so we have Kansas has a ballot initiative to vote on in August at the primary, August 4th. And we're going to talk about that today. What it means, what we do now, what it would be, etc., etc., etc. Get that?
Yeah, so I I have my own copy, but people are probably going to want to check it out.
Yeah,
But
I
I
don't care.
so this has to do with voting for your Supreme Court justices in Kansas. And when I
Correct.
was reading about this, I didn't know. I mean, so I voted for judges. You know, I live in Oregon, and we have nonpartisan elections here, and that's how we do ours. And I was kind of looking at what goes on across the country, and there's quite a few different ways that people choose their Supreme Court justices, and Kansas kind of has a unique one. You want to talk about how it works in Kansas?
Yes, I do. Hold on. I'm bringing up the bill. Where's the bill? There's the bill. Okay. So there's a copy of the proposed constitutional amendment, and this is on, um, like I said, August 4th. Um, and so the current way that we do it is actually we have a panel of 9 individuals, right? And it's 4 non-lawyers from all of the 4 congressional districts, 4 lawyers from each of the congressional district, and then it's chaired by another lawyer, right? So when we have a Supreme Court vacancy, they get together and they actually announce the openings so people can apply for it. And then now I got to bring up my notes. Then they'll review the applications, obviously. They'll select 3, and they have 60 days to select those 3 and then send them to the governor. And then the governor actually has 60 days from that date to then appoint one of the 3. So that's how we're doing it now. And then one thing that probably people really need to understand is because, there's a suggestion that we don't get, the public doesn't get a say in in our judges being chosen. But we actually do. So after they've served for 1 year, the public gets to vote whether to retain them or not. And if we retain them, then we actually vote again every 6 years after that until they either have to retire or we vote them out or vote to not retain them, rather, or whatever other reason they could be removed from office or, not be there anymore. But that's how we do it right now. Um, and they would like to change it to where the public votes, where we have campaigns, um, which I think, in my opinion, and we'll share links to this stuff, but I'm not going to keep screen sharing the whole time. But the way that we do it is probably the best way that there is. We've done it that way since I think 1958 when Kansas voted to do it that way. Um, and what was I going to say? Oh, so the thing is, the arguments are we need to balance um, an independent and impartial judiciary with democratic accountability, right? So we want the judicial branch, we want our judges to rule based in law. We don't want them to be swayed by public opinion, but we do want them to be accountable to the people because they are part of our government of by and for the people, right? So that's kind of what the issues are. That's the 2 kind of competing considerations that we have to consider while we're deciding what's the best way to go. Um,
Right, because you want judges. So, like, one of the reasons that we have lifetime appointments in the Supreme Court is so that judges can really be impartial because they don't have to worry about getting kicked out of the Supreme Court, right? They can interpret the law as they see it. At least that's the idea, is that it's not supposed to be, partisan. They're not supposed to be depending on people voting them back in later, and therefore sort of pandering to the public, to politics, to
Right.
a party for donations, anything
Right.
like that. And then the idea of judicial accountability, that's more about the recall, right? And so we have a lot less judicial accountability when you have like lifetime appointments, you could say, but
There's
you
no
do have it,
retention vote. There's nothing. Once they're there, they're
right?
there. Um,
And when I learned about the way Kansas does it, I was just kind of like learning about all the different ways the different states do it for the first time. And I love the idea of a retention vote, because here, when we vote, it's like, okay, like, who are these people? How am I supposed to even know how they voted in the past? What is their judicial record? Like, do I, as a citizen, have to go and read all of their opinions? That's a lot to do. Um, and we have nonpartisan elections here, but there are partisan elections where you can be Democrat or Republican. It sounds like that's what Kansas is headed for. But but the idea of a retention vote is awesome, because you're like, oh, I've got a whole year of, if I care, I can pay attention for a whole year. Watch how this person is doing their job, and see if they should stick around or not.
mhm.
I think it's an awesome system. And plus, you've got a huge, it's merit based, because you've got a bunch of experts who are doing that footwork for you, before they suggest to the governor who they think, should be selected. A lot like we have, a similar situation with the Supreme Court. It's not just the president choosing his favorite judges. He's always got input from people who really know what they're talking about.
Right. And the Senate, yeah, of course, for this U.S. Supreme Court, the Senate has to confirm those nominees as well. Um, but yeah, you're exactly right. And the I thought it was interesting that the panel actually has five non-lawyers on there. So there's a lot of, there's politicians trying to spin the arguments one way or another, however they want it to be, um, which is par for the course for politics. But but a lot of what they try to say, a lot of the proponents for this initiative, to have us voting on Supreme Court judges, um, is, because they want us to, oh, thumbs up, thumbs up. Good. Um, they're saying that the public should have the say, right? But it's important to be clear that the public actually does have a say, and you're exactly right. How will we know who they are? One thing that I found interesting about how they're selected is they do public interviews of these judges before they send them to the governor. So that's something that the public can be aware of it and can be paying attention to that, but probably a lot of us don't know how. I didn't know that they were public until doing this research. So, um, and then I see, Ty Masterson's argument that our elections, or the way we select them, is already political, and um, and this is just going to make it publicly political. But again, we have those public interviews or of them, and the public gets to know who they are, and then the public gets to retain them or not. And that's a perfect way. I see a lot of people complaining because they can't figure out which party the judges belong to. It's the same thing that I get when I'm running around and people are like, well, what party are you? What party are you? Well, I don't want you to know my party, because then you're not going to talk to me or you're going to like me. I don't know which one you're going to do. It depends on whether you align with me or not. But it's going to shut down the conversation. We have to keep the conversation going. But now I forgot. Now I lost my train of thought. But um,
I don't like the idea of parties being involved in judicial
in
elections
judicial at all, right? Like
for a
at all.
lot of reasons. But mostly, yeah, because like one good reason is because you're gonna, like, many people will blindly vote, RRRR or DDDDD, and it doesn't really matter, and you're not necessarily choosing the best. The party has chosen a candidate for you in it
Yeah.
when it is party politics often. Um, I don't know if they'll be primarying these, right? It sounds like a lot of the rules for how that voting actually happens is like TBD.
Yeah,
But
they however they
but
said it.
but they're explicitly making it so. So currently, the no judges at all, including the Supreme Court judges in Kansas, are allowed to be affiliated with a party, receive party donations, right? Any of that. And what they're doing for this is they're keeping those rules for all of the lower court judges, but they're getting rid of those rules just for the Supreme Court. So they're not necessarily politicizing the entire judiciary, but they're definitely trying to politicize the highest court. And it sounds like, he's like, oh well, the guy you're talking about, the Senate president, he's talking about, oh, like there's inherently going to be politics in all of this, so we're just going to like supercharge the politics in it. We're
Right.
going to say you can take money, you can, campaign with a party, you can belong to a party, you can like just dive into politics. And I don't think that the judiciary is necessarily the place for that, because we want judges who are just, deciding the law, deciding people's fates, deciding.
Just applying the law to the case, right? Like that's it. That's all they're supposed to do. And you're 100% right. And this, he admits that there'll be money and nastiness in it. And for me, I don't want that. I don't want more of what we're already seeing in Congress and state government and whatever, the legislatures, whatever, all of this nastiness. That needs to stop already. We need to fix that already. So expanding it to our judiciary is completely backwards from what we should be doing. We should be moving the other direction and capping campaign finance and campaign finance reform for the House and the Senate. Um, but these people with the big money, that's what they use it to control, and he's part of that system. I'll also say, there's an argument that when they make the argument that we want our Supreme Court justices to be held accountable to us. We want them to rule on issues in the way that we want them to. Well, my say to that is if they're ruling on something that's not already decided, right? Because they're bound by the law, right? Judges are bound by the law. They have to rule in line with the law. So in order to change how they're ruling, and if it's like a discretionary thing, if it's something that there's not a law on yet, why don't we allow Kansans to put the issue on the ballot, bring something to the ballot to vote on? That's how you get the public to have more control over what the Supreme Court is doing. But of course, they don't want that. So they'll never do that because they like to be in control of all of it. But Kansas, I'm telling you, y'all need to push for being allowed to get an initiative on the ballot. A lot of other states can do it. You have to get a lot of signatures. It's not necessarily easy to do, but when something's that important and the people of Kansas want to vote on it and want to have it decided the way that they want it, then they should be allowed to do it. And Kansas needs to fix that. We need to allow it. That's
Yeah,
my 2 cents on that.
we've got the initiative process here, and I think it's kind of fun because I get asked for my signature on all sorts of things, and I love an initiative, and even if I disagree with it, I always agree with that we should be able to vote on something,
Yeah,
right?
let's
And
vote.
and I've signed probably a few different initiatives that I ended up voting no on, but I love the process. I think it's fun, and I think it's important for us all to get our say on what our laws are. And then our judges use those laws and they apply those laws that we have on the books. And if you don't like the way that judges are ruling on something, you don't like the way they're applying the law, maybe the problem isn't the judges. Maybe the problem is
It
the
is
law
the
needs to
law.
change or the legislature
Mhm.
needs to do something. But you're right, the initiative process is a way for the public to have their say on what that law is. That's super interesting. I didn't know that you guys didn't have initiatives.
I didn't either until last year. I was looking into like I've learned so much over the last year. Um, but yeah, let me just see if I have any other important notes that I want to make before we talk about the Scottsboro trial. Did you read up on it?
I read it. It was depressing. I wasn't sure if I was
You
supposed to
don't
be reading.
remember? Did you not learn about it in law school?
I don't think so.
pretty sure it's the one that they ruled that. I mean, I know it's the one where the Supreme Court Powell v. Alabama. It's where they
I mean, I
said
read
that they
about it.
had to have African Americans on the jury. Anyway, so yeah, so let's talk about, because I like this example because, well, I'm a history person anyway, so I find it interesting, and it's just a case that I've remembered since law school, and I think I actually learned about it when I was, studying history in college as well. But okay, so I'll sum it up. So it's March of 1931, and this is like a time when people would use the trains to travel around. They just hop on the trains to travel for work, right? So that's what these young people were doing. And there was actually an equal mix of black and white young men that they call hoboing. I don't know if that's an offensive term. If it is, then I apologize, but that's what they called it on Wikipedia, in fact. Uh, But so they're hopping the train to find some work and they're traveling. A group of white boys saw an 18-year-old African American. This was Haywood Patterson, and they tried to push him off the train. And they said it was a white man's train. So after that, there was a group of white boys, men, young, whatevers. They started gathering rocks and tried to get all of the black teenagers off the train. But the black teenagers were actually able to hold them off, and the white teenagers got humiliated and ended up jumping off the train. But after they did, they went and told the police nearby. And so at the next train stop, the police were there to search the train, and they arrested the black teenagers. And there were two young white women who were taken to the jail and interviewed, and they actually accused the black teenagers of rape. Um, so, in a rush trial in the Deep South in the 1930s, all but one of the African American children were convicted of rape and sentenced to death, even though there was no medical evidence that a rape had taken place. The case was appealed. The Alabama Supreme Court affirmed 7 of the 8 convictions and granted 13-year-old Eugene Williams a new trial since he was a minor. There was also a 14-year-old, I've forgotten his name, but these were young people.
Yeah,
Um,
the oldest was 19. So 13 to
yeah.
19, just kids.
So one of the Supreme Court justices, or the Chief Justice actually, dissented and said that the defendants had been denied an impartial jury, a fair trial, fair sentencing, and effective counsel. The cases were sent to the U.S. Supreme Court twice, and in Powell v. Alabama, the SCOTUS ordered a new trial. The new judge was Judge Horton, and he was actually serving in his second term when he was overseeing the retrials. During the retrials, one of the female victims alleged admitted that she had made up her rape story and also said that the other victim was not bothered by these young boys or men or um, but the jury found them guilty again anyway. Judge Horton then set aside the verdict and granted a new trial. But then what would happen is public opinion was very much in favor of, putting these boys away, putting them to death, whatever. And so Judge Horton ended up losing his election the next time around. Um, so then there was a new judge and a new trial, and it was years and years of fighting this in court. Um, Eventually, charges were dropped for 4 of the 9 defendants. The other 5 were convicted and received various sentences ranging from 75 years to death. And it wasn't until early May of 2013 when the last 3 who had not yet been pardoned or had their charges dropped were granted posthumous pardons. So that's a very good example of why we need impartiality in our judiciary. Those children were tormented for life. That the women admitted that that this had not happened, and yet still they were prosecuted for these things, and some of them sentenced again to 75 years to death. Um,
And
so
the
I just
judge who
like
was trying to do the right thing got voted out because
voted
public
out.
opinion was so racist at the time.
Right. And do we want whatever is popular at the time to be deciding the fate in our courts? I mean, I don't think that that's the way to go. And I will tell you that studies have also shown that when the judges are elected, when they're newly elected, they're a lot better at being impartial than when they're coming up for reelection. Then you can start to see, just like with our politicians, right? Like we don't see or hear that much from them until, oh, they're running for reelection again. And now here they are, and we can't get rid of them. They're just all around us all the time. Um, it's the same kind of a thing. You'd have judges then taking into account public opinion and trying to make people happy instead of just ruling in accordance with the law. So
At the expense of whoever is in front of them, right? Like whoever happens to be up in their court getting tried. They're not necessarily getting a fair trial because that judge is trying to run for reelection.
and at the expense of all of us, because that person is probably going to appeal. So that's going to be, court court battles for a long time. But not only that, but if you're convicting someone who didn't do it, well, then you're not getting the person that did do it, right? So this is going to
Right.
harm everybody. It harms society in general. Um, so yeah, so and it's not just, I mean, that's a criminal case, but you think about civil cases as well, and um, how they might end up being swayed one way or another on those. So,
No, it's just a waste of everyone's time. You don't want judges who are in anyone's pocket. You don't want a judge to be ruling on a case where they're in the pocket of somebody who's in front of them.
well, and judges are supposed to recuse themselves from that anyway. And the thing is, I don't think that we know what the qualifications of the judges are going to be either. They haven't, like you said, a lot of the stuff in the ballot initiative is kind of vague and, oh, it's TBD, to be determined. We'll figure it out later how we're going to do this, which leaves room for a lot of different scenarios that could go any which way, I guess. I mean, um, but I don't trust them to do it in a way that's fair and impartial. Um,
Yeah,
what
if
else
you've
is
got
missing?
got parties choosing who your judges are, I can't see that. I mean, right now, I'm looking at the Supreme Court Nominating Commission of Kansas's selection criteria, and it seems pretty tame, right? It's legal and judicial experience, educational background, character and ethics, temperament, service to the community, impartiality, and respect of colleagues, and those are all things that can easily get shoved to the side when you're in a politicized election, especially a partisan election where it's just going to be RVD. There's going to be mudslinging. There's going to be fights about ballot counting. These things become when they get politicized. I know that character and ethics certainly get pushed to the back,
Well, and I'm
and that's what
wondering, will if they're not lawyers, will they have to follow the rules of ethics that we have to follow? I know there's a code of judicial conduct that they may have to follow, but before they're elected, will they have those rules of ethics that they have to follow, or will they be able to
when I was looking at it,
act
it
like,
looks like they're not changing the part of the Constitution that requires a nominee be 30 years old or a lawyer admitted to practice in Kansas and
oh
engaged in
yeah,
the practice of law for at least 10 years, whether as a lawyer, a judge, or a full-time teacher at an accredited law school. I think that all stays the same. So at least you would
okay,
be having, people who have passed the bar and practiced for a good 10 years. So somebody who's experienced or was a law teacher. Um,
got you. Okay, well that makes me feel slightly better. But
Yeah, well, I
I
thought the
still
same
don't.
thing. Like, is it just anyone can be a
Anyway,
Supreme Court justice now? But I don't think so.
but I don't know. It's uh, my 2 cents is, I mean, people should obviously do the research themselves. I will share our links to more information about it. The articles that I've found. I will tell you that the articles that I have found say that this is the best way to do it. This is the best way to have the selection of the Supreme Court justices in the state. And I think it's great. When I was learning about it myself, I was like, oh, This is fantastic the way we do it. And I love the retention vote. And I love that they're up again every 6 years. And I love that there's an age where they have to leave 75 and they're done. They can finish out the term. Like if they turn 75 during their term of service, they can finish out that term. But then they're done. So
Yeah, I think it's a great way to do it. I would encourage other states to consider this. And there's quite a few states that have politicized elections for their judges, and I've seen some mud throwing in some of them, and it's unfortunate because I think the judiciary is one place where we need to have impartiality and respect, and just like it needs to be a calm, solemn place where we're not where the judges themselves aren't involved in fights.
um, I agree. So vote no August 4th if you do not want this ballot measure to go through, for this amendment to go through. And then there's apparently another one on November 3rd, my B-Day. But I'm not sure what it is yet. Oh, also, this is important. You might hear that if you're not registered with either a Democrat, either as a Democrat or a Republican, you won't be able to vote in the primary, but you can still vote on this initiative. So still go vote August 4th. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You can vote on that. You don't have to be registered one way or another to do it. And we need you to get out. You need to get out and vote. It's very important. Consider the two arguments. Consider the research and make the best judgment call that you can. I've told you what I think, but people should do what they believe is right. And what else was I going to say? But if you want to vote for me in the Democratic primary, you do have to register as a Democrat before August 4th. So do that too. And then vote for me on my B-Day, November 3rd.
Yay.
Yay.
Man, this
Do we have
is the
anything else? This was like a short one.
yeah. Yeah, but I think we said what needed to be said about all this stuff.
Yeah, I think so too. Good. People will be happy that they don't have to listen to us as long. What are we going to talk about next week?
What were you saying you wanted to talk about?
I
I
don't
had a
know.
suggestion from someone about talking about unions, but you said you
Oh
wanted to
yeah, we
talk
do
about
need.
something else.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh, we need to do the Federal Tort Claims Relief Act. I was going to see if Mike Snyder will do that with us. So maybe unions, maybe that. I don't know, maybe something else. If people have suggestions for podcasts that you want to see, someone wants to know something about, she heard something about marriage camps. A lady at the dentist, and she wants to know if that's real. And if it
Marriage
is real, are they going to be
mar
forced? There
marriage
was,
camps.
yeah, did you hear about it? There was something recently.
No, I'm not
I think
on
the
social media though, so
Heritage Foundation suggests marriage camps.
I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah. So somebody wants to know about that. So maybe we should try to find out.
Huh.
Bless her heart. She's like, is
Huh.
that real? It's like, well, I did hear something, but I don't know. So we'll have to look into that further and try to get
There-
her some answers.
Oh man. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
2026. It's the year we live in.
2026. Ah, fireworks?
Mine's not doing it. Oh, there we go.
Ah! Did you get it? Ah, there they go. Okay,
Hip,
thanks,
hip,
Kate. I'm gonna stop
hooray.
recording. Bye,
Right.
everybody. Hey, sign up for our stuff. Follow us, like us on social media, etc., etc. All those things that those influencers tell you to do. And then vote for us. Also join our campaign. We want everybody with us. And have a great one.